Look what I found here. It's a Shohei Ohtani Angels Cup. I have a feeling this is about to become a collector's item.
You are Locked On MLB. Your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. If you don't believe me, whoops, there's my lower third. I just lost my background, though. You could call me Sully. I am an Emmy-nominated television producer. All hell is breaking loose in here. Here we are. I'm an Emmy-nominated television producer who's been a podcaster for baseball for the last 10 years, and this is my fifth season here with the Locked On Podcast Network. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And happy 4th of July to everybody. And you know what? Even if you're not American or if you're not feeling patriotic, have a good 4th of July. We're all experiencing a 4th of July. I hope it's a good one. We're going to have a barbecue and we're going to eat and we're going to watch baseball games. By the way, if I were the commissioner of baseball, and trust me, it's only a matter of time, every team should play a doubleheader on Memorial Day, hell, on Juneteenth, on 4th of July, and on Labor Day. 4 days, you play a doubleheader. Every team plays too. You got those days off, got those holidays, boom, 4 times. You got that. If you have the day off, let's go out to the ballpark. And by the way, before we get going here, I forgot to do when I did my show yesterday with Miller. I forgot to go through the answer of the trivia question because I have a good one for today too. Craig Brindle, who just seems to be on a roll here. Craig, hopefully you're following me on Twitter. If you're still on Twitter, as we all know, Twitter may be imploded by the time this is released. But Craig Brindle got the trivia question right. I said, who is the only person to win the All-Star Game MVP in back-to-back seasons? And the answer is Mike Trout. Mike Trout did the back-to-back All-Star MVP. He's not bad. By the way, in his answer, Craig is apparently trying to earn favors from your pal Sully here. He says, I agree with them wearing their own jersey at the All-Star Game. I said that's part of the point, is seeing your player wearing the team's jersey at the All-Star Game, and he likes the idea of the game being at the beginning of the season. I've been saying that for longer than I've been podcasting. I've been saying that. Mike Trout's in the news right now, and I'm recording this. It's in the morning of the 4th of July that I'm recording this. I was going to record this last night, but I fell asleep. In fact, I fell asleep before I was listening to the Giants game, and I fell asleep before the Giants game ended. So I woke up to find out that Duvall, the Giants' lone All-Star representative, imploded last night in a game against the Seattle Mariners. I'm going to bring up the Mariners in just a segment today. But Mike Trout got hurt yesterday. The Angels had, surprise, another disastrous game against their fellow disasters of Southern California, the San Diego Padres. Now, the Padres, we have to have different layers of disaster. The Padres spent tons of money, filled the team with MVP candidates, and not only are they not winning the division right now, I believe they're in 4th place, but they have a losing record on the 4th of July. That's right. The team I picked to go to the World Series, the San Diego Padres, are a sub-500 non-contender on the 4th of July. More than half the season's gone by. The All-Star break is next week. Things have to turn around fast for the Padres. But many of those players are signed long-term, and who knows? They could bounce back next year. This could just be a blip. However, the Angels. We're getting back to the Angels again. It was a 10-3 loss to San Diego. Okay, that's bad enough. And by the way, listen to Locked On Angels, as the Super Halo brothers have been absolutely killing it. Great shows they've been putting on. I listened to the show this morning. They did. where they're basically breaking down the fact that the lineup construction is ridiculous. Some of their best players are still languishing in the minor leagues. When you have a team that desperately needs to get into the playoffs, you have to play all your best players. And if it means benching Anthony Rendon or not acquiring Eduardo Escobar or moving Moniak up and down the lineup, why the lineup of the Angels isn't number one Ohtani, number two Trout is beyond me, because you want those two to have the most at bats of anyone on the team. Of course, they still have basically an interim manager in Phil Nevin managing the team. He's only there because Joe Madden got canned last year. And with fine managerial candidates floating out there, the Angels are keeping the car seat. They're giving the car keys to the guy who waved home Judge in the wild card game for the Yankees a few years ago. The front office is not putting together a quality team, and they're hovering around contention, but they're still on the outside looking in. And I said a couple of weeks ago that these next few weeks are the single most critical few weeks in the history of the Angels, because they have to show Shohei Ohtani. This was his, I got this a few years ago, and he was the Rookie of the Year Cup. They have to show Shohei Ohtani that they are serious about putting a World Series contender on the field. Not a fringe wildcard team, a team that he could win the ring and be showcased on the grand stage the way he was during the World Baseball Classic. And as I said before, whatever he asks for, he will get, because he's an all-star caliber pitcher and hitter. When he got named to the all-star team, do you know the question that nobody asked was he named as a hitter or as a pitcher? Both. He has an outside chance to win the Cy Young Award this year and lead the league in RBI. You know, when people talk about no one's done this since Ruth, actually, Ruth didn't do this. Ruth's days of being the dominant offensive force in baseball did not coincide with him being one of the dominant left-handed pitchers in baseball. It started to bleed over a little bit at the end of his Red Sox time when he was a pitcher for the World Series champion, and then the next year set the home run record. But the Yankees said, you know what, you could pitch like one game a year. You're here for your bat. Shohei has gone, he is legitimate. You want him to strengthen your rotation and make your lineup outstanding? Boom. His agent can call up any team and say, how much money do you want? And he can say, all of it. I want all the money. And he'll get it somehow. And so it became critical that the Angels show that they can turn it around. And what did they do? They went on a losing streak, with Ohtani seeming to hit a home run every game and Trout seeming to hit a home run every game, which meant that everything on the team, save for a Detmer start here or a Moniak hit there, almost everybody else was not doing their job. And the fact that they had players like Joe Adell, is Joe Adell going to be a great player? I don't know, but he's got to be better than the bottom of the order right now. Give him a shot. He strikes out too much. Yeah, but he may park one every once in a while. You got to do something. And they went on a massive losing streak. And even though some teams like the Yankees have done everything but put out a welcome mat for people to take their spot in the wild card race, as they went on a 6-game stretch against two of the worst teams in baseball, the A's and the Cardinals, and they just split them 3-3. And the Angels can't take advantage of that. And now in the Padres game, Trout hurt his hand, hurt his wrist, not sure what. And apparently he was still in pain after they took him out. Now, I'm recording this. It's about 8:15 in the morning. But I know that every Angel fan has their smartphone here, refresh on Twitter to get any news. But if we find out that Trout is going to miss even a week, it's too late. It'd be too late. Because you can't remove Trout. You can't remove that Jenga piece from this lineup and expect them to gain ground on Houston, on New York, on Baltimore. You can't do it. There's front office have shown you no evidence they're capable of doing it. The manager shown you not capable of doing it. And at that moment, you kind of sort of have to put Otani up for sale. You kind of sort of have to put him on the trade market. And you obviously can say you'll never get full value for him. And the answer to that is I know. But to paraphrase Tote from Raiders of the Lost Ark, that time has passed. Whether you're going to get full value, you're never going to get full value for him. But if this Angels team flounders and flops and sputters to even an 83 win season, why would Ohtani resign? Why would he? The Mets have an angry fan base, Scherzer's contract coming off the books, and an owner with an unlimited amount of money wanting to win back the fans. You don't think that he'll pony everything up? The Dodgers, who didn't go on a big spending spree last year, can look up and say, like, hey, you may have to sell your house. Come move up to 5. You're thinking a team like Seattle, flushed with cash, having a disappointing season after finally making it back to the postseason, wanting to win their fans over, where in one fell swoop they pick up an all-star pitcher and hitter? You don't think San Francisco, another team with a lot of dough, who tried to make a splash with the Judge, tried to make a splash with Carlos Correa, now they can make the biggest splash into McCovey Cove? He could ask for whatever he wants. And the Angels will have to say, we're not even going to get a prime draft pick if he walks. So you have to say, if Trout is injured, say, we're not going to do it this year. We got to get something for Ohtani. Even if it's disappointing, disappointing is better than nothing. Which means that there is a trade partner who I didn't just mention in that bunch for a team that has their eye on a pennant for this particular year that I think should look long and hard about offering one of their top prospects to the Angels. Hey, let's talk a little bit about where are we going here. We're going to FanDuel. Now, FanDuel is the number one sports book in America. Take your first swing at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $2,000. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. I might say $200. That's $200 you could spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think will get the first home run. All on an app that's safe and secure and super easy to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's number one sports book. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel is an official partner of Major League Baseball. One of the best teams in the American League and one of the toughest teams in the American League this year has been the Baltimore Orioles. Now, they lost the game yesterday, a game where they had the lead to the Yankees. Their bullpen had a bad day. But the team has been very good. The team looks like they're going to be a contender. And the team is a very deep farm system. Now, our good friend Connor Newcomb posted something the other day where he was looking at some of the trade chips that are out there. And a lot of them are pitchers on the White Sox, Lucas Giolito, Dylan Cease, Lance Lynn, some of those pitchers who could be a good addition to the team. And the Orioles could certainly use someone like that. And I saw there was an exchange on Twitter between Connor and one of his followers where they're basically saying, why would you trade from your farm system? In fact, I can pull up the exact tweet here, but it was basically, why would you pull from the farm system to get, for someone who might just be a rental when you could be, okay, here it is. Explain to me, like I'm 5 years old, why a team playing with house money 2 years ahead of schedule would give up prospects for a guy they could sign in free agent in the offseason. Okay, first of all, when you that whole we'll just sign him in the free agency, that's always so arrogant. That's so arrogant. Oh, no, who else is going to sign him? A lot of other teams could, and you could acquire him and maybe re-sign them or get them in the fold or get them to see what a great city Baltimore is. Now, Connor's reaction to that said because they had the best farm system in baseball, too many good prospects to give playing time in the big leagues, another draft coming up in 5 days, and an owner won't to sign them when they're more expensive in free agency. Plus, they can win something this year. Okay. That tweet suddenly got me thinking about Shohei Ohtani. The Orioles farm system is flush with a lot of young players, including some top prospects. Now, some of them, like Adley Rutschman, are already, Gunnar Henderson, already made it to the major leagues. But sometimes you got to say, hey, we don't have enough slots for everybody. Okay, which means they're a prime team to make a trade. And of course, as Connor pointed out, the draft is coming up. If you trade away a top prospect, you can draft in another potential prospect. Fair enough. What does this have to do with Shohei Ohtani? And what does this have to do with the concept of being 2 years ahead of schedule? Listen to me. Listen to me right now. The Orioles' top prospect in their farm system is Jackson Holliday. He's one of the top prospects in baseball right now, the son of former Rockies and Cardinals star Matt Holliday. Now, he is currently in single A, but tearing it up and looks like an absolute can't-miss superstar. I think he should go to the Angels in a package for Shohei Ohtani. Is that reckless? No, not in the slightest. The Orioles should take a look at some of those prospects they have and say, well, this guy, and this guy all have outside chances of making the team, or this, that, or the other thing. Put together a package of like 4 players who you think, all right, they may or may not be able to get there, and they're great blue chipper in Jackson Holliday, and hold it up in front of the Angels and say, give us Ohtani, you get these 4 players. In the draft, the Orioles can draft a shortstop to fill the hole that Jackson Holliday would have filled, and maybe fill in some of the other holes there, and insert Shohei Ohtani into a team that is playoff bound. Now, it may just be a rental. He may just go, and you trade away 4 young players for someone to have for half a season. Is that reckless? Is that a dumb idea? In some cases, in most cases, I would say yes. This is not most cases. If you send 4 potentials for a half a season of an all-star pitcher and an all-star hitter in one human being, you do that. Especially because the Orioles are a playoff team. Especially because if you add another bat and another arm to this team, suddenly the idea of making up the ground in Tampa Bay is not so horrible. But also, the main thing is you get them into the postseason with a strong team and a rejuvenized feeling, the opposite of what happened last year when at the trade deadline they sold. All of a sudden, you bring in the biggest star in baseball. What will that mean to the team? What will that mean to the morale of the team? The concentric circles of we've just added a legit frontline starter and a 40-50 home run hitter to our team for a bunch of players who could be good, and that's a risk you take. And suddenly you find yourself in a postseason situation where you're a legit contender. Would they be better than Minnesota, who's currently at even 500? Yeah. Would they be better than Texas? I think so. Would they be better than the current iteration of the Yankees and the Astros? I think so. Would they be better than Tampa? I think they'd be head to head, but every year you see a top team doesn't make it out of the early rounds of the playoffs. And it's always a team that has great depth. And the idea of they're a couple of years ahead of schedule, guess what? It doesn't always work in a linear manner. It doesn't always work like a ladder. Ask Seattle fans finally got into the postseason last year. This was supposed to be the next step up. They've taken a big step down. They're not getting production from their players. Teoscar Hernandez has not been the big superstar. I was watching part of the Giants game yesterday. When they see the average and the OPSs of all the players in that lineup, I said, yikes. Even Julio Rodriguez, the AL superstar, the cover boy for the Mariners media guide, all of a sudden can't. He's having an okay season, but he's not on the All-Star team, and you didn't see a lot of people calling him snubbed. There was supposed to be a progression, and there's a regression. Yeah, the Orioles are a couple years ahead of schedule. They could also fall back. And I want to put one thing in perspective here. We are now in the 40th anniversary of the last time the Orioles were in the World Series. There was a period of time between 1966 and 1983 where the Orioles appearing in the World Series was a commonplace event. 66, 69, 70, 71, 79, 83, sprinkling a bunch of division titles in there. The Orioles were like the much more successful than the Yankees in that stretch of time. The last time, let me put this in perspective. The last time the Orioles were in the World Series, there was only one Indiana Jones movie. Raiders of the Lost Ark was the only Indiana Jones movie you could have seen in 1983. We're up to 5 right now. 3 of them were supposedly the last one. By the way, I saw the new Indiana Jones movie. It's not bad. It's not great. But it's been a while. It was Ronald Reagan's first term. Cal Ripken Jr. was still a young player. Ken Griffey Sr. was still playing. It's been a while since the Orioles have been in a World Series. And do you know what? Maybe for that sleeping giant of a fan base, that is the Baltimore fan base, to see their team in the World Series with a legit shot to be in the World Series, that could mean something. Remember the progression was supposed to be when they were in 2012 and they got into the ALCS in 2014, back to the playoffs in 2016? That window of opportunity can slam shut. And right now, even though it's ahead of your schedule, it doesn't necessarily mean everyone's schedule aligns to a plan. Ask Padre fans. So when you have a chance to bring in a generational talent, you do it. And there's another reason why you do it. The other reason you bring in someone, even if it means sacrificing a Jackson Holliday, one of your top prospects, is because sometimes those prospects don't turn into what you think they're going to be. Yes, sometimes the person who's labeled as the top prospect in baseball becomes a Bryce Harper, becomes a Shohei Ohtani for that matter, becomes a superstar like an Alex Rodriguez, becomes a legitimate all-star for many years like a David Price, who had a wonderful career. But sometimes they become players who are good. Good. Delman Young had a nice career. He was touted as the number 1 prospect in the world. Andrew Benintendi, when he was a Red Sox prospect, was going to be the next Fred Lynn, Carl Yastrzemski, and Nomar Garcia-Parra. He's had a fine career. Helped the Red Sox win a World Series. Made another All-Star team. It's been a little injury prone. It's been up and down. They are perspective. They are possibly great, possibly good. If you had a chance to take your team to the World Series for the first time in 2 generations, it will cost you someone who might be great or might be good. And you can lay down the foundation for either A, you get a shot to re-sign him, and if he doesn't, at least for half a year, you're filling up the joint. You're igniting a brand new generation of Baltimore Oriole fans, and you put them in a situation to win. And you wouldn't do that because, well, this guy might be good later. It's been 40 years since someone has said, "Welcome to the World Series here in Baltimore." There's the lot of great Baltimore Oriole teams had a schedule that they didn't hit. Mike Mussina never played in a World Series in Baltimore. Buck Showalter never managed a World Series in Baltimore. Fine players never got to play in the World Series in Baltimore. And you have a chance, even if it is a cameo, to have Shohei Ohtani in there. Sometimes cameos can be successful. Jack Morris is 1 year in Minnesota. Pudge Rodriguez is 1 year with the Miami Marlins. Brought World Series championships to them. Hell, if you're going to go over to basketball, Kawhi Leonard. You think Toronto fans are mad that he only spent 1 year there? I'm sure they would have won more, but they got a World Series, they got an NBA title out of their trouble. If Oriole fans, for the first time in 2 generations, can have a World Series, finally a World Series in Camden Yards, and it would cost them someone who might be good down the line, I think you take that. I think you got to take that every single time. So tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm wrong at Locked On MLB Pods. Tell me why I'm wrong on Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Tell me why I'm wrong down in the comments section below. A little bit of the future for the biggest present we can ever imagine, and a legit shot at a World Series in Baltimore. Tell me why I'm wrong. Hey, let's do the trivia question here that I'm sure Craig will get. It's another All-Star Game MVP question. This one surprised me. The Oakland A's have had many superstars go to the All-Star Game, whether it's, well, some of the recent years may not be laden with superstars, but the Reggie Jacksons, the Vida Blues, the Raleigh Fingers, the Joe Rudys, the Ricky Hendersons, the Mark McGuire, Jose Canseco, Dave Stewart, Dennis Eckersley, Jason Giambi, all of them down the line, superstars for the Oakland A's. But only one ever won the All-Star Game MVP. Who is the only member of the Oakland A's to win the All-Star Game MVP? Put it on all those websites that I just mentioned, and I know Craig already is writing it down right now. But let me hear from someone other than Craig. Got a couple of good answers for something, and a couple other people did point out that Trout won back-to-back All-Star Game MVPs. And boy, oh boy, I hope Mike Trout is. You probably all know already, but let's hope Mike Trout's okay, because I'd just be rotten for baseball if he's injured. I want to see Shohei Ohtani win, and I'd like to see him win it with his teammate Mike Trout. I'm not even an Angels fan, but I want to see the Angels do well. Get well, Mike. Get well. And if not, Baltimore, think about it. Think about trading a little bit of the future for the present. But have a happy 4th of July to everybody else. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods and all the places that I said before. This has been the please, please, please be healthy Mike Trout, or Angels, please, please, please trade Shohei Ohtani edition, 4th of July edition of Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.